The Appalachian Trail isn't just a long hike through some of the most stunning landscapes in America. It's a place where legends come to life. Stretching over 2,000 miles, the trail is steeped in history, mystery, and eerie encounters that make it a magnet for the brave and the curious. From whispered superstitions passed down through generations to unexplained events that send chills down the spines of hikers, the Appalachian Trail is a haven for those seeking the unknown. But among the countless tales that echo through these hills, some stand out as truly unsettling. What began as two teens' quest to debunk a local legend turned into a chilling encounter that left them questioning everything. Was she just a reclusive old woman, or was there something far darker lurking in the woods? In the mid-1970s, two teens, Scoot and his friend, set out to debunk the legend of the Witch of Rattlesnake Ridge. According to local lore, an old woman living in a remote shack was responsible for cursing four men to mysterious deaths. The boys, fueled by curiosity and skepticism, were determined to find the supposed witch's cabin and prove the story wrong. The hike up Rattlesnake Ridge was uneventful, but as they neared the summit, a faint, unmistakable smell of smoke drifted through the air. Their excitement quickly turned to unease as they pushed deeper into the forest, the smoky trail leading them to a dilapidated cabin hidden behind a thicket of trees. It looked straight out of a nightmare. Wind chimes made of bones, dried herbs hanging from the rafters, and an old broom leaning by the door. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and out stepped an elderly woman, hunched over with wild white hair and piercing eyes. Before the boys could move, she spotted them and shrieked, "Who's there? Show yourselves!" Panicked, they bolted, branches snapping underfoot as her voice echoed behind them. They didn't stop running until they were home, breathless and terrified. Their parents assured them she was just a lonely recluse who meant no harm, but the boys couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story. Years later, locals revealed a tragic past. The woman, once named Dora Ann, had suffered unspeakable trauma, losing her husband in mysterious circumstances. She retreated to the ridge, where whispers of curses and dark rituals began to swirl. Though the boys survived their encounter, they never ventured back, leaving the legend of the witch to haunt Rattlesnake Ridge and their nightmares forever. From eerie encounters with witches to mysterious discoveries hidden in the wilderness, the Appalachian Trail seems to harbor secrets that defy explanation. A group of friends hiking near a quiet section of the Appalachian Trail in Pennsylvania stumbled upon something straight out of a psychological thriller. While taking a break at a small rock formation, one of them spotted a metal candy tin partially buried at the base of a boulder. What they found inside would leave them questioning the true nature of their hike. The tin held two crumpled yellowed notes. The first was a crude drawing of the very rocks and trees surrounding them, accompanied by a chilling sentence on the back. This was the last thing Sarah ever saw. A wave of unease washed over the group as they processed the words. One hiker unfolded the second note, only to find a list titled, "People I Need to Apologize To," followed by a series of names and references to stolen items. Speculations ran wild. Could it be a suicide note from someone overwhelmed with guilt? Or was it a dark confession from someone recounting their crimes? Adding to the mystery, the handwriting differed slightly between the two notes, possibly written at different times, or perhaps by two different people entirely. Unable to ignore the sinister implications, the friends scoured the area for signs of a body or disturbed earth, but found nothing. With no concrete answers, they decided to take the tin to the nearest police station, hoping to prevent someone else from stumbling into a potentially grim scene. To this day, the candy tin's notes remain an unsolved enigma. Were they the work of a disturbed prankster, or evidence of a dark chapter in the trail's hidden history? The group left the forest that day with more questions than answers, and a chilling memory they'd never forget. The Appalachian Trail has always been a refuge for hikers seeking adventure and solace, but sometimes it reveals a much darker side. A pair of hikers on a multi-day trek through the Appalachian Trail in Tennessee stumbled upon something that turned their peaceful adventure into a haunting memory. Exhausted and sleep-deprived, they pushed onward in hopes of reaching a rumored shelter where they could finally rest. What they found instead were two makeshift graves marked only by a weathered red cloth tied to stakes in the ground. The discovery froze them in their tracks. The mounds of dirt were small, uneven, and unmistakable. Though they initially thought it might be a prank, the eerie stillness of the woods and the care put into the markings made them question their safety. Neither could bring themselves to dig or inspect the sites further. Fear began to creep in, and every crackle of a twig or rustle of leaves felt like an unseen presence watching from the shadows. Uneasy but determined to make it to the shelter, they hurried away, keeping the graves in their peripheral vision until they were out of sight. Once they reached the next town, they immediately reported their findings to local authorities, who promised to investigate. Days passed, and the hikers heard nothing. Follow-up attempts to get updates were met with vague responses and disinterest, leaving them with more questions than answers. Was it the work of a backwoods hermit, a grim accident, or something far more sinister? The authorities never released any conclusions, and the hikers couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled onto a piece of a larger, darker story. To this day, they avoid discussing the event in detail, haunted by the possibility that their footsteps crossed paths with a terrifying truth buried deep in the Appalachian woods. The Appalachian Trail's eerie reputation isn't just folklore. It's an unsettling reality for those who stumble upon its darker corners. A peaceful night in the woods turned into a nightmare when a couple camping along the Appalachian Trail fell into an argument that would change their lives forever. What started as a tense exchange escalated until the woman stormed off into the pitch-black forest, flashlight in hand. Despite her partner's protests, she was determined to make her point, even if it meant hiking alone at night. Hours later, the tranquility of the campsite was shattered by a piercing scream echoing through the trees. The woman's cry for help jolted the remaining campers awake, and they scrambled to locate her. Flashlights in hand, they followed the desperate sound until they found her collapsed on the trail. One leg twisted unnaturally, clearly broken. Between sobs, she explained how someone had emerged from the darkness and struck her leg with a heavy object, sending her to the ground in agony. She never saw her attacker's face, just the shadowy figure retreating into the forest. Panic set in as the campers realized they could still be in danger. Working together, they fashioned a makeshift stretcher and carried her back to the campsite, constantly scanning the woods for signs of movement. With no cell service, they had no choice but to wait out the night, armed with knives and camping tools, as they kept watch in shifts. The following morning, they managed to transport her to a nearby town for medical attention. Despite their detailed report to the local authorities, no suspect was ever identified, and the motive for the attack remained a mystery. The incident left a chilling reminder. While wildlife and the elements are the expected dangers of the trail, the true threats can be much closer and far more human than anyone anticipates. Just when you think the dangers of the Appalachian Trail are behind you, real-life horrors remind us how fragile safety can be. In May 2019, a group of hikers trekking through the George Washington and Jefferson National Forest crossed paths with a man known by his trail name, Sovereign. Though he strummed a guitar and rambled aimlessly, there was something unsettling about him. The hikers recognized him from warnings circulating in the trail community. This man, James Jordan, had gained infamy for erratic and threatening behavior. His presence signaled danger. The group hurriedly moved on, setting up camp a few miles ahead, but Jordan followed. As darkness fell, he approached their tents, making chilling threats to burn them alive. The hikers, now fully awake, began packing their belongings to flee. But before they could escape, Jordan attacked. Two hikers managed to run into the woods and hide, but Ronald Stronghold Sanchez Jr., a war veteran, stayed behind to protect a fellow hiker. What followed was a brutal and tragic confrontation. Sanchez's military training gave him the courage to stand his ground, but Jordan overpowered him, stabbing him fatally. The female hiker also became a target, but her quick thinking saved her life. After being attacked and stabbed multiple times, she played dead until Jordan moved away. Summoning every ounce of strength, she ran 6 miles in the dark, wounded and bleeding, to find help. Authorities arrived hours later, arresting Jordan near another group of campers. Covered in blood, he was taken into custody without resistance. Sanchez's death and the attack on the surviving hiker sent shockwaves through the Appalachian Trail community, forever marking it as one of the trail's darkest moments. The Appalachian Trail is a place of natural beauty and personal triumph, but it also hides an unsettling undercurrent of the unknown, from eerie discoveries and strange encounters to the terrifying acts of violence that defy explanation. These stories remind us that the wilderness holds more than just trees and trails. It holds secrets, dangers, and shadows that even the bravest hiker cannot predict. For those who dare to venture into the depths of the forest, remember, it's not always what's ahead on the path that should concern you. It's what may already be watching from the trees. The Appalachian Trail may promise solitude and healing, but it can also reveal humanity's darkest depths. As hikers lace up their boots, they must remember that even amidst the serene wilderness, the unexpected can lurk just beyond the next bend.